Active duty service members, reservists, and National Guard troops called to active duty have particular rights and protections under the Servicemembers Civil Relief Act. The Department of Justice wants to remind them and the organizations with which they do business about these protections. Here with more on DOJ's two new SCRA fact sheets is the United States Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, Mac Warner. Mr. Warner, thank you for joining me.
It's great to be with you, Terry.
So the Department of Justice has just published two fact sheets to help service members understand their rights under the Servicemembers Civil Relief Act, or the old SCRA. Let's start there with a little bit of an overview of that law.
Sure. What this is designed to do is to protect those who protect us. So we're talking about our service members. And our president, through his executive order 14183, said he wants to prioritize military readiness, and that means a singular focus on the warrior ethos. We want people to go to war or be prepared to go to war with a focus on what their specialty is. In the military, we call it their MOS. And so what Congress has done is back in 2003, it passed the Servicemembers Civil Relief Act. Prior to that, it was known as the Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act. But this is for all service members of all branches of the service. And so they passed this act that you and I will be talking about. And it's up to the Department of Justice, and that's where I work now. It's up to us to enforce it, to make sure that the service members, one, know about their rights. And that's what you're doing here today by us talking about this. And then enforce it. If any service member has a problem, they can come to the Department of Justice, and we can get involved to make sure that their rights are enforced. My boss, Harmeet Dillon, has said that service members make great sacrifices to protect our nation's safety, and it's the Department of Justice that we are committed to ensuring those service members are afforded those rights. So we want all service members to devote their entire energy to defending the United States and not to be distracted by financial concerns. So as we talk today, I want a twofold focus. One is on the service members themselves and their families or dependents to know about the rights, but I also want to talk to creditors, say people that work at banks or lease cars or rent out storage space to service members. Those are the creditors. And it's important to know that the Department of Justice works together with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, to make sure that they are affording the rights. They're abiding by this law to give the service members their rights. And if I might, maybe providing a basis for why we're talking about this today would let people understand the importance of this. Less than 10% of the people that are eligible to say have an auto loan reduction, or 6% of the people with personal loans of the activated National Guard and Reserve are receiving the reductions they're entitled to. So that's an awful lot of money that's left on the table. Over $10 million a year is lost by these service members if they had simply known and asked for the benefit that the SCRA provided. So, and if you get into credit cards and mortgages, a lot more could be saved.
So let's rebaseline that a little bit, because one of the fact sheets does deal with this interest rate cap, which is a protection provided under the SCRA. Your fact sheet sets the upper cap on interest rate charges at 6%. You started talking about creditors, but let's back up a little bit. Who's covered under that rate cap, and how does it work?
The people that are covered by this are people who are on active duty, but I think it was designed mainly for our Guard and Reserve people, because they are the ones who are dealing with their daily jobs in and out, and having their life, and then all of a sudden they get orders and says, now you're going to be deployed for a year over to a foreign country. And so a couple things happen. One is they have to rearrange a lot of their lifestyle. They have to worry about things back home. And one of the things we don't want them to have to worry about is a paid reduction, even though that may occur. Let's say they're a doctor or somebody that's receiving a very nice salary, and then all of a sudden they come on military duty, and their military salary is going to be much less than they were making in the civilian world. So that's why Congress put this 6% cap on it. If you were paying, say, 10% on a house loan or 10% on a car loan, this law allows you to go back to that creditor and say, hey, for the next year, I'm entitled to only have to pay 6% instead of 10%. So that answers who's eligible. It's people on active duty. And in the military, it's known as Title 10, when you're on Title 10 authority, as opposed to Title 32, which is state National Guard deployment. So if you're just working on a cleanup inside the state for a week or two, then this wouldn't apply. But if you're going on a Title 10, which is over 30 days duration, then you get this entitlement, and it lasts for up to a year after you come off of that Title 10 status. So it's a significant benefit, And that's why we wanted to put out these fact sheets, just to one, let people know about it, and then two, also to get to the creditors and say, if someone comes to you, a soldier or a sailor or a Marine, and they say, I'm entitled to the 6%, and you hear the advertisements on the radio, on the TV or whatever, about bundling your home and auto or whatever. Well, if they come to you for your home reduction, the creditor that has bundled this ought to look at their auto as well, or any of the personal loans. And so we ask the creditors, if someone comes to you, look at their portfolio and give them that 6%, because that's what they're entitled to, cap on all their loans.
Mr. Warner, as you're talking about the categories of loans here, one of the ones you didn't mention is student loans. And we know a lot of military folks, especially folks in the Guard, may be carrying student loans, and a deployment or an activation might really interrupt that payment. Are student loans covered under the interest cap as well?
Yes, they are. I'm so glad you asked about that because, yes, so many service members and their dependents and spouses are dealing with student loans. So if they incurred that loan prior to them coming on to the active duty status, then yes, this does apply. So pretty much any of those personal loans, including student loans, are covered under this SCRA.
And you made a really important point there as well. Spouses and dependents can have relief under these provisions.
Yes, they certainly can. And the dependent is somebody who has been dependent upon that service member for over half of their requirements for 180 days or more during the previous year.
All right. The first fact sheet had to do with the 6% interest cap. What was the second fact sheet about?
The second was, what does this apply to? So we've talked about housing. We've talked about lending, a personal loan, property situation. And there you might think about somebody who puts their goods or household goods into storage. And while they're gone, the storage facility decides to sell that property. And if you haven't made a payment, you've forgotten to set up an automatic payment or whatever, they sometimes can sell their goods. But if with a military person, they have to go to court before they can sell those goods or get rid of the goods. We had a case where a woman was deployed and they said, there were all of her household goods and bags and medals and pictures of their kids. The owner sold this stuff for $390. They auctioned it off. They just wanted to get rid of the stuff out of their container and sold it. That's a situation she came to us. We got a settlement to get her compensated. So housing, lending, property. And the fourth area is portability of professional licenses. One of the things that we've done surveys on is what are some of the issues that service members face? And half of them that have deployed said one of the problems is the ability of their spouse to get employment. They have a higher unemployment than the rest of the civilian world. And it's because when they move from post to post, it's difficult for them to then pick up with a professional license. So we're talking about not just doctors and lawyers. We know that they need licenses, but a beautician or somebody that does nails or any of these type things where you're required to get a license. Now, under this law, those have to be recognized by the state that you're moving into or the territory. This law applies to the U.S. territories as well. So that should facilitate or make it easier for a spouse to transfer their professional license from state to state and gain employment.
So, Mr. Warner, all of these protections are provided in the SCRA. What should a service member or a spouse do if they feel like their rights have been violated?
Well, the easiest or the best thing to do is actually to go to your local legal assistance office, because that office typically has already worked with the local lenders and service providers and know how to deal with that. So your legal assistance office is your first line of defense, if you will. But if they are not able to solve the problem, or if you simply want to deal with this yourself, you can go online to www.servicemembers.gov. Okay, that's our website. There's an easy user-friendly form to fill out and let us know of the problem. And then we have lawyers here at the Department of Justice who will get involved, respond, let you know what your rights are and whether we can help. So again, servicemembers.gov.
What are some of the most common complaints you hear from service members about violations of their rights under SCRA?
Well, I think the thing that is dealt with most often is breaking a lease. So you have a one-year lease on an apartment, and then you get those orders and you have to leave. So all you have to do is show the landlord copies of your orders, a letter from your commander, something of that nature. And those are the things that typically come up most often. You also see something as simple as a gym membership. You may not think that as being much, but hey, a couple $100 on a gym membership can mean a lot to a soldier that's not paid very much. So things like that, an auto repossession. We mentioned earlier the storage